Good afternoon. This is Dave Miller, and welcome to Life in Business. This is numero uno for the podcast, and I couldn't imagine having anybody besides you two on this, my first one. So thank you so much. Would have said, "Hey, I can't do it till such and such," I would have probably said, "You know what? The first episode is going when you're available."
Wow, I feel special.
Yeah. Well, it was like I was on your show first.
Yeah, that's true.
You were.
It feels like full circle.
Yeah,
it is. You were number one guest on our show, which was not the same name. Now it's the North Idaho Experience, but so obviously we're in our studio, and I appreciate.
Come on,
that. I left the sign on.
Come on, and thank you so much for allowing me to use your studio.
Yeah.
I am learning this craft and what it takes to set up a studio. I'm working on getting that set up, and I think we're probably 2 or 3 weeks away.
Sweet.
Which reminds me, is there any way I could do like the next 2 episodes here?
I already figured you were, so yes.
All right.
I'll sit over in the corner and I'll be the sound engineer. That'll be cool.
You're awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Well, hey, let's just jump right in. You know, I am very interested in just talking with people, entrepreneurs specifically, because I have learned that we are a different breed. There is just something in us that is different. You know, we're willing to forego the security. We're willing to forego the normalcy, the normal hours, the normal paycheck, the normal benefits, the normal whatever, and just throw it all on the line. So if we could start, can you give me a history of, what you've done prior to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think you really touched on something important there, because I came from a background in public safety. So I was a cop for 14 years, and I lived, in public safety. I hate to say this, but if you show up to work every day on time and don't commit a felony, you'll get a paycheck. It's easy, right? And obviously there are really good ones and bad ones, and you can be good, and that's fine. But it was a huge shift for me to become an entrepreneur. And Kristen really kind of like dragged me into that world. She tricked me into that world.
Well, I've never, aside from like in high school, I've never worked for anybody. I've always been an entrepreneur. So I started out being a cosmetologist, and then I was a nutrition coach, and then a real estate agent. So I've always worked for myself. Yeah. I can't imagine working for anyone else, honestly.
Tell me about that, because that is, that's very interesting that you were just like from early on, you were like, you know what? I don't want to have a boss.
I do not. Yeah, totally. And it's always been hard, right? And scary. I started cosmetology when I was, 19, 20, bought a house by 21. So
that's why I married her, by the way. So, I'm not dumb.
Yeah. So I did that until, for 6 years, until we had our first kid. And then I was a stay-at-home mom, and then I got bored. So then I started working on my nutrition certificate, and I think I actually might have gone real estate first.
Yeah,
twiddled with that a little bit.
Fitness coaching. She was always doing something.
Yeah.
So it was a good example for me. And then when I retired from law enforcement, she was like, "Hey, you should come to the dark side and do real estate." And I was like,
"We can do it. Okay. We can do it." I have all the ideas, right? I have all these ideas, but implementing is the biggest thing in being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So there's dreamers, and then there's implementers, and you have to be kind of both.
Yes. Or marry one, right?
Yeah.
I am a full-on dreamer. I take that back. I can implement. I think that's a good having that good mixture of being able to do both. And I can't always implement everything. I can implement some things. I'm really good at hanging crap on walls. Like that's one of my skill sets. But like I can say, "Hey, I have this idea," and then I pitch it to her, and she'll just run with it, and that works out really well. Yeah. And then like, even broader, our new real estate team that we're part of, we've got amazing partners, and it's the same kind of dynamic as where like we have dreamers and implementers. And I think having that mix is the key to success.
Yeah, that's cool. So you just touched on something there. So I love being in business for myself. But by the way, I own Life Public House, and we spell Life LFE, and that stands for Live Your Freedom Every Day. And that's where the idea of this podcast came about, because most entrepreneurs, freedom is a big part of why they do what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just the whole, especially, when you have kids, you know what it's like. If there's a day where it's just, you know what, I need to spend time with the family today, and whatever I'm doing at work can wait. for me, owning the coffee shop is a little bit different. But even then, last Tuesday, I went to bed Monday night and I was like, you know what? I need to be in nature for a day. And I had to ask nobody except for my crew. And I've got a great crew. And I was able to say, hey, you know what? I need someone to work tomorrow because I need a day. And I went out hiking with my dog and it was just, my body needed it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that, it doesn't mean it's easy to find that time,
Nope.
right? But you don't have to answer to anybody.
Right.
Yeah. You can rearrange your own schedule and figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think balancing the terrifying fear of not, really like you don't know your next paycheck's coming.
I can't relate.
You don't know for sure, right? But you balance that terrifying feeling with the absolute freedom and this fact that there's no limit, right? There's no limit to what we can achieve. There's no ceiling on what we're trying to do. So I love being the masters of our own destiny. I think that's the key.
Yeah. And that is something that's definitely different about people willing to be entrepreneurs that are willing to do it, because that's, it sounds great saying, hey, I have no limit. I can do whatever, whatever. But it's also very stressful.
Yeah. And I have the constant self-doubt and am I capable? Can I do it? There's so much going on back there.
The ceiling's really high, but the floor is really low.
Right.
Sometimes you're just happy to reach the floor.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Like for example, as a cop, if I had to work like a 16-hour shift, which happened fairly frequently, I was absolutely miserable, like smoked. I hated it. But I routinely find myself working from 4:30 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. and I'm like, I could keep going. The only thing that stops me is like, well, I got to get up at 4:30, so I need to go to bed.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah,
and it's tough because then you run that risk of I'm a father, married. I've got other stuff besides work that kind of needs my attention. And that's a challenge, I think, when you're an entrepreneur, because there's stuff to do 24 hours a day,
There's
7
always
days a
something
week.
to work on.
There's always, you've done it. I'm sure you've laid in bed at night and been like, I got to do this.
Yeah.
And you either write it down or you go do it, or you like, I hope I remember this in the morning.
Yeah.
The reminders app on my phone and my calendar saved my life, because exactly that. I'll be laying in bed and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about this thing. And then I just pull my phone up, set a reminder. Okay, now I can get it out of my brain. I'll deal with it tomorrow. But yeah, that is constant. And, back to the public safety thing, I could work a shift, go home and completely shut off. Like I don't need to think about work at all. That was nice. That is a good thing that I do not have anymore. But, that's part of that balance is like, what's important to you? Well, freedom is pretty damn important.
Right. And it's honestly, it's a challenge for me. I've struggled with that. That's really why I had to get away, where I had no cell phone coverage. I had no way of someone reaching me. And I just kind of had to say, it's probably still going to be okay. It might not be done the way that I would have done it, but it's probably going to be okay.
Right. We had to do that. Was it 2 or 3 weeks ago now? We went away, us and one of our partners, and there was no cell phone service out there whatsoever. So we had to go out. We all went out once a day just to check our phones and make sure there weren't any fires put out. But it felt really nice. It was, everyone was feeling pretty stressed before we left. Everything's just so busy for the summer and we're working hard. And it was just like, we need this break.
It took me a solid day to decompress though, to where I could like actually relax. I think that was a big challenge, because you get so caught up in the day to day. I know you deal with this too, where like you're in it, man, and you go to bed and you're in it, you wake up, you're in it. And it's really hard to shut that off. Really hard.
Yeah. So what do you do to get away, to take a break, to decompress? Like what do you enjoy doing outside of work? And we're going to talk about what you're doing work-wise in just a second, but what do you do?
I just drank a lot of alcohol. I think that's a healthy coping mechanism, right? Just checking. No, I'm kidding. I think it all comes down to like healthy activities that reduce stress in your life, I think. And those are universal, right? I practice the same kind of stuff as a cop. It's, living a healthy lifestyle, eating right, working out. Working out is a huge one.
Working out's huge for me. Yeah. We both get up and work out first thing in the morning.
4:30. Let's go.
Yeah.
Fired
full
up.
time.
And before I've started getting up even earlier now because I don't go to the gym until 6, but I started getting up at 4:30 so I have a little bit of downtime in the morning. I drank my coffee. It's live coffee too. Don't doubt it.
I've seen you once or twice.
And then I've started reading in the morning because I try to read at night, but I'm so tired. But by the time I lay down at 8:30, I fall asleep in a minute. So I'm like, I need to be able to expand my knowledge still. So I've started reading in the morning, and I'll get a good 30 minutes of reading time in while I'm drinking my coffee. I might do some journaling. That's like my reflection time. That's a very valuable time to me. And we're usually on the couch together, sitting there doing that. And the dogs are hanging out, whatever. And then I'll go to the gym and get the workout out of the way. And then it's like,
Then it's go time.
Go time.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, our calendars are so full with like meetings and coffee with people, usually at Life, and all of that stuff that, you know, makes our day-to-day life go. But so I think that time is really critical. You know, eating right, of course, is very important too, just so you don't lose your mind.
Yeah. You mentioned reading.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of books are you reading right now?
Actually, right now I'm reading a book. Well, I don't remember the name of it, and it's about dealing with different personalities that you might find in a business environment. Actually, okay. I think it's called Winning Through Intimidation. I think, but it's not actually about intimidating other people. It's about dealing with people that are intimidating.
Okay.
Because in obviously you know all this, but in the business world, there are a lot of different personalities, and there are people that will take advantage of you, and it's important to kind of know how to balance that. I think so. That's the current book I'm reading.
I'm gonna have to get that.
Yeah. I'll send you the.
I end up being this person that's, you know, I want everybody to be happy all the time.
Me too.
That's just how I work. And so my answer to everybody is normally yes. And unfortunately, people sometimes aren't as respectful as they probably should be. And so I end up doing a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, it's not a good feeling when you feel like you've been taken advantage of. Yeah. And so, but give me that book.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. And then it's important, and I'm just learning this, to be guarded with your time.
Yes.
Our time has value. And the more we say yes, because I'm the same way, I will say yes to dang near everything. Peer pressure works wonders on me, by the way. It's like, whoa. Now I'm giving up time that I'm not necessarily making money on these things, and making money to feed the family is my number one goal. So I've lately just had to either turn people down or like, hey, in the wintertime when I'm not so busy, then we can get together and have that conversation that they want to have.
Yeah, I think that's so true for business owners, because, you know, entrepreneurs, you're always trying to figure out not only to, you know, make customers happy, but, you know, to build relationships with people and do things. And so you're always saying yes. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are doing that, and that there's a valuable lesson in learning to say no. And I'm trying to figure that out.
Hard.
And when you're starting, like for us, I guess I'm like 4 years into doing real estate now, but when I was first starting, I really felt like and I probably did have to say yes to more things because I was building more of those relationships. Now, you know, we might have a mortgage lender reach out and they want to get coffee, and that's part of the game, right? They want to get to know us. We do real estate. They want our business. So, but now I'm like, you know what? I've got some great lenders that I already work with. That need is met. I can't even take a half hour to meet you. Sorry. Like, we'll push it out. Maybe in the wintertime I can take that time and we can build that relationship, but I can't do it right now. It's really hard for me to do that, but I have started to have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What great words. The crazy thing is, part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is selfishly, I want to learn from people that are doing business. And so I get to sit down with somebody weekly and, you know, hopefully get a little nugget here, a little nugget there. And you know, I am a very community oriented person, and I really want this whole podcast to become, you know, kind of a community of entrepreneurs that we can learn from each other, because, man, it's tough sometimes knowing, like, you know, like, how much money do I spend on this such and such advertising? Where do I advertise? When do I advertise? You know, what do I give my time to? What do I say no to? I'm always afraid, like, if I say no, this could be the one thing that I should have said yes to.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
that's the challenge, right? Because you don't know what that one conversation is going to lead to.
And they often lead to really good, like, man, you have a lot of conversations. I know you hook me up with a lot of people and I meet them and I'm like, whoa, I'll get a little nugget from like almost everybody that you meet. So it is like you could potentially be leaving some stuff on the table by doing that. But And that's like been one of the number one things lately that has really changed my life. Like I need a little bit of time during the day to myself to be able to eat lunch or whatever.
Yep.
Like, so
Yeah, actually do some work. Yeah.
Or do the job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been trying to literally take just, even if it's 15, 20 minutes during the day, sometimes where, my phone's off and I just unplug.
You find a dark corner and go sob to yourself.
Yeah. I stopped sucking my thumb.
That's a big step.
Well, so you're a police officer and you had done basically an entrepreneur since as long as you can remember. So you decided how did you decide, or tell me about the end to your being a California Highway Patrolman? How did that end?
Yeah, so I actually got retired from an injury that I had on duty. It's not cool. I did not get shot. That comes up a lot. I shouldn't even say it. I should just leave that open-ended and people assume that. I had a hernia from work and then surgery. I got nerve damage. So they pushed me out right at the beginning of that big pandemic we had. And that's when Kristen was like, hey, let's move to Idaho. And here we are. And then she was like, hey, you should become a realtor. So she wrote me in. This is where I tell you that she wrote me in.
I knew he'd be good at it.
She tricked me.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, and then she like pushed me forward and was like, all right, I'm going to go hide in the background now and do all the back stuff. So she does like a lot of the, our YouTube is very big for our real estate business. So she does a lot of the management of the YouTube side of it, which is fantastic. And somehow I became the face of our team here. And it's actually worked out pretty well. So that's how we got here, at least to get started in real estate. And then we developed that other team. So
good. If I remember right, or just in a past conversation, remember when you first got up here, were you considering like a gym or something like that? Or was that in the realm? How far down that road did you go? And how did you decide that wasn't the road that you wanted to, that was not the answer that you were looking for? So
when we were thinking about doing that, it was going to be like our side hustle to real estate. So we were it still could possibly happen someday, but we were.
Don't give away all the clues.
Yeah. It was a fitness kickboxing gym. And we actually were in the works with a lease with someone in Washington, just because we couldn't find any spaces here in North Idaho that worked for us. And then at the last minute, I was like, I cannot do business in Washington. I cannot have a business in Washington. It would be a nightmare. So we pulled that out, and it just timing hasn't worked out for it since then.
I mean, we have the name, we have all the branding, everything's done, and we have the business plan. So it
and
could
it's a
happen.
Good business, but
it is.
Yeah.
Cool.
We just don't have the time right now. We're so busy with real estate.
That's probably one of the bigger challenges too. Is once you get into being an entrepreneur, it's like you start getting a lot of ideas.
Squirrel brain,
and you're
man.
like, oh, what about this? And this still happens. We have like 5 other business ideas that are kicking around in the back of the mind, and how do you pick the right one? I don't know. We kind of, I always defer to like, all right, let's just get a little bit more information, and then maybe the question will be answered. So, you just explore that avenue as far as you can. And then with all of that information, you try to make a decision like that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that just didn't make sense at the time, but it could, but we're so dang busy. It's
that's the problem right now is how are we going to, put time to that and energy into that. Mm-hmm. Right. Like I said, I am not necessarily selling real estate, but I am managing our team and YouTube and helping with social media. And it's just like, I'm pulled so many directions and yeah.
So it's crazy now. If you're an entrepreneur now, you pretty much have to be a social media expert.
Yep. You have to wear so many hats. You have to, You're an
HR person, you're an accountant, you're marketing.
Yeah.
It's
like, oh my goodness.
It's wild. We were very fortunate. We teamed up with 3 other people, I guess you would call it. Yeah. So our partners, Dave Faller and his wife, Renee Faller, and then Eric Boardman. And we created a real estate team. And that's been really good because everyone has their own area of responsibility. And we run it very much like, so Dave used to be a fire captain. So he understands how to manage groups. Eric is a sergeant with the local police department. So he also understands how to manage. And Kristen knows how to manage. So we just like everybody diversifies with their unique talents and we just run with it. And it's fantastic. I mean, finding those partners has been awesome for all of us.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned earlier, I'm definitely a person that's about community. And so it's cool when you can do entrepreneurship but still do community.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing like real estate was missing. At least we had each other, right? Being a husband and wife team. But real estate's a lonely, lonely game because you're like everyone's basically your competitor, you know? So that was what the other partners and we were like all missing. And then we brainstormed and we're like, let's just do things different. Let's work together and make this happen. And that makes us all thrive and work harder. And it's made us explode because now we have, I don't know, those relationships, those people supporting us, and it's not lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our office is one big open room. It's very much like a firehouse or a police station briefing room, and it's chaotic, but it's so damn fun, you know, because we have that banter, we have the, you know, everybody's working towards that common goal, and we're not competing with each other. I mean, there's friendly competition, right?
Right.
But there's
It's
not
healthy.
like, but we're all in it together, like
Yeah.
fully vested in it together. You know, we share everything. So we really flipped the script on most real estate teams, where, you know, most real estate teams, there'll be like one person that benefits the most. We have all of us that benefit equally. So it takes a lot of trust.
So if we make a sell, our other partners are dividing that income with them. So we all support each other.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that I haven't met anyone else that does it that way, at least locally that we know of. So it requires a lot of trust. And most people we tell that, they're like, what? That's crazy. And I'm like, well, it works great for us. So,
yeah.
Well, that's because we're like every single partner is a crazy hard worker, an entrepreneur at heart. And they're not like, you know, it'd be hard if someone was like slacking. Right.
Right.
But everyone's trying to outdo the other. Like it's a friendly competition constantly. Like I'm doing more business than you.
Step it up.
Yeah.
Right.
In a friendly way. So yeah, we enjoy it.
Yeah. And to touch back on what you said about like the social media thing and how it takes a team, that has been huge. And we've hired other people that, you know, are not partners, but all work towards that common goal. Because, you know, our main business comes through our YouTube channel, which is the same name, the North Idaho Experience. And that channel, real estate focus, we do a lot of neighborhood tours. We show off the community. We don't, like we always say, we don't sell homes, we sell the North Idaho Experience. And it's a massive beast to film all the content, edit the content, and then post the content. So I couldn't do it by myself. We couldn't do it by ourselves. Now we have a bunch of people doing it, and it's like, it's manageable.
Yeah. Well, tell me about how this got started.
So our real estate team, when we teamed up with Dave and Eric and Renee, our real estate team is Your North Idaho Agent. Then we had the YouTube that we brought into this group that was already started, and that was originally called Residing in North Idaho. And we just started to realize that we needed a little bit of a catchier name. And then we realized that a lot of our content is about the experience of living up here, because I think it's a very unique area to live and it's a unique experience. So that's where this name was born, and it kind of encompasses everything. Like, what is it like to, when people are thinking about moving here, and most of our clients do tend to come from somewhere else and they're moving here, you know, what do they want to know? They want to know what it looks like. They want to know what the community's like. Am I going to fit in, or are there cool people up there? So that's what we really started to niche down and kind of get into and explain and show what it's like up here. Most of our clientele, now we're not exclusive to first responders and veterans, but most of them come from that background because they see our content and they're like, oh, like they got tattooed, like they look like me, they sound like me. And so we tend to draw that crowd, and it's fantastic because there's a mutual trust on both sides immediately, right? You can put me or Dave or Eric in a room with any cop, firefighter from anywhere in the world, and we're immediately like, there's a banter, there's a trust, like it's cool. It's all love. So once we hit that niche, it took off.
Yeah, but I also think, so we have the YouTube channel that shows off all that, but then we started a podcast, which has the same name. And that is a whole different focus. That's more focused on the experience of living here as in the community.
Right, right.
What kind of, you know, what does the community look like? Who lives here? And I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, because that's your baby.
I love to talk about it. Really the podcast is my favorite thing to do. So I was honored when you asked me to come on, because I can talk for hours. Sorry. But really, like, I wanted to highlight the community, because that was one of the main questions I got all the time. Like, you know,
okay, it looks cool there. It's a nice lake. There's nice neighborhoods, but
are the people cool? I'm like, these people are cooler than anywhere else in the world.
That's what makes this area.
Yeah.
Right.
It's such a diverse group, like background of people. So when we started the podcast, it was our first episode, it was very real estate focused. We were like, oh, we're going to focus on the local businesses and the real estate. And it's like, nobody wants to hear realtors talk about real estate. Sorry. So we're like, okay, we need to shift gears here. So we started bringing in first responders. And man, most of the first responders up here have a side hustle. Like, oh, this guy does financial planning. So we're like, oh, you're pretty cool. So we start going into that world. And then prepping is huge up here. Guns, all of these things that are the lifestyle of North Idaho that people move here for. We just started to focus on that. And the conversations are phenomenal. I every time I have one, I'm like, man, I'm annoying. I know. I come home and I'm like, I had such a great conversation. Blah, blah, blah. And she's like,
like, I don't want him to come home one time and say that one sucked, but I'm waiting for it.
Right.
Yeah, like I don't think I'll ever come home and be like, that person sucked. So we don't talk about real estate stuff. I mean, it'll come up occasionally, but that is not the focus. We don't focus on lending. Nobody cares about that. So that, I think that has been the biggest joy for me, is to seek out and find, people in the community that are like, that have something going on, that have some unique aspect to them. And there are a lot of them up here, and you connect me with a lot of them. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. It literally is. It's the whole community thing. I mean, I love this community. I've lived in the community for 52 years.
It's weird because you're only 40, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I said 52. I'm 54. I tried to cut out a couple of years. My goodness. But I was away at college for a few of those years. So
okay,
technically, yeah. It is. It's a crazy community.
Yeah.
And I love watching your podcast because I've lived here all this time, and I get to learn stuff about our community. Like even though it's not like, hey, I don't want to talk about real estate. When you go to other, like Kellogg or Sandpoint or there's stuff that I'm like, I did not know that.
Yeah.
When did that happen? It would be like, oh, that happened in 1932. I'm like, wow. How do I not know this? So yeah, it's super cool, and I can see where people that are looking to move here would find that so valuable.
Yeah.
Because it's not just Coeur Lane. You want to know what Hayden's like, what Post Falls is like, what the Silver Valley's like. If I want to go skiing an hour and a half away or whatever, what's that like? So yeah, it's cool. I've enjoyed it.
It's been like a real honor for me because we've had people come on that I'm like, wow, like how did I get that connection? We had the Shoshone County Sheriff on. She was amazing. That was a great conversation. Obviously, we've had the Kootenai County Sheriff on a couple of times. And I'm like, I'm really honored that these people will take the time out of their day to come sit down with me and talk on these microphones and share their story. And I'm like, it's super cool. Like I could go on forever about it.
Yeah, that's cool. So you've got the real estate thing going. You've got kind of a little community inside of the community.
Right.
You've got the podcast going. I know you're both parents with two amazing kids. How do you balance the, like, oh my goodness, I gotta, turn this off so I can turn this on.
Right. It's hard. Luckily, I kind of have more of that solid role where I'm like, okay, I'm done at this time, and I get home and I can be home with them. And then he gets to be home. He just might be on his phone a little more than he wants to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, we always do dinner. We're always doing dinner every night together. That's something we've always done, and we always will do.
Yeah. It's a little easier now. Our kids are 16 and 13. So, if they were little, that would be different. That would be probably a different story. So, we have that freedom because they're pretty independent at this point. So I guess we're lucky in that regard. But yeah, the work-life balance is one of the bigger challenges I would say that we deal with. Of how do I not, like, I am busier than you, which is good because I want you to be, one of us at least to be available to be home and handle home problem, dentist appointments and all that stuff. Like Kristen takes the brunt of that, which is nice to have that partnership between the two of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you just like basically, hey, you know what, we're making some non-negotiables or whatever and kind of protecting those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We try to carve out time and make sure we have time to, go out on the boat as a family or do whatever. So we always.
And our kids are, they're super supportive. They actually love it. Like they're very involved in what we're doing because it's exciting to them too. And our son is a super entrepreneur. Like he obviously got that from one of us. And so he's always got business ideas that he's trying to do. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Like it's something wore off on him, and our daughter too, to a lesser extent, but she's always got some kind of plan going. So it's nice to see them embrace that. Cause I'd love, we would love to build something that we could pass on to them at some point and like some kind of legacy that they could run with. Yeah. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know, like, what was it, about 6 months ago? You moved from the city out of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Has that helped as far as that
Like
just
turning
finding
off?
balance?
Yeah.
Turning off.
Yeah, one of the bigger factors, we were right downtown on 3rd Street in Coeur d'Alene. It's pretty busy. We noticed the kids were inside a lot and on screens a lot. And we're like,
That's not who we are.
that's not who we are.
Yeah.
So, and they wanted property. We've had property in the past, like in other states that I won't mention. And so it wasn't foreign to us, but we were like, okay, it's time to get out. So we traded like a really nice downtown home for a shack on 5 acres. And it's been wonderful. Honestly, I believe that. Like, we've got goats, we've got chickens, tractor, all the stuff that makes North Idaho what it is. And our kids are just like,
they love it.
Love it.
Now they're outdoors all the time, playing with the
That's
animals, building forts, whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's been awesome to see, because we were both like, is it going to wear off? Are they going to do that anymore? But no, they love it. They absolutely love it. Yeah.
Give a kid a shovel and 5 acres and stand by. Yeah.
So I heard you say you had property in other states.
Yeah.
Did you have goats?
No.
No.
We've always
No.
had chickens. Chickens are something we've had for a long time. Never had goats. Goats are new to us, and I love them. I will sit out there and just watch them. Like they're like dogs.
Except for like, almost, I don't know, cuter the way they like
Yeah.
skip around and they do their little, I don't know, bucking. But yeah, they come up, they're super friendly. So they're like, they see you outside and they start yelling at you to come down and say hi to them, and they hang out with you. They'll jump on you if you let them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's it's not all fun and games, right? We had a young goat die that we bought, and our son had to put her down because I was at work, and that was that's traumatic, but it's part of the farm life is embracing all of it, and sometimes there's death, and it's a good life lesson for the kids. We just had another goat die in. It's not childbirth. What is it? Goat birth? There's a term. I'm sure someone out there's like, you idiot. But we had one die as the mom was giving birth to it, and once again, it was traumatic, but it's like part of the process. And I think it's important for the kids to see that.
Yeah.
We're getting cows next, by the way.
Losing animals is tough.
Oh, it's tough.
I had a dog for 12, 13 years, like all the hikes, all the camping, all the stuff with me. And dude, I cried like a baby.
Oh.
And so I had to go and because it was, she couldn't, she reached a point where she couldn't walk. She couldn't do it. I had to carry her, and I knew it was time to put her down. And so I took her to the vet, and I'm looking at her in the face, just bawling like a baby.
Oh, yeah.
And they give her the shot. And so, I'm, hey, it's okay, buddy. Because her eyes are open. She's looking at me. You're going to be, man, just all the, and telling him, I'm reminding the dog of all the good times we had together. Remember the hike? And so the vet comes in probably 10 minutes later, and I was like, hey, man, take as long as you need. And I was like, okay, I'm just waiting for her to pass. And the vet's like, well, we put her down about 10 minutes ago. And I was like, she's not alive right now. So I sat for 10 minutes talking to my dog who had passed.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to get it to remember like good times. And there was probably zero chance of that.
Hey, but that was probably important for you.
Yeah.
It probably was. Yeah. I think I took it harder than my kids, I think.
Yeah.
Just because, there's something about, I just been on so many journeys with the dog, and which I guess if you're thinking about the entrepreneurship, the animals, the property outside, it's so nice to do something else that isn't business related.
Yeah.
It's a good mental break. On a sidebar, I gave mouth to snout resuscitation to the baby goat that didn't survive. Yeah. So I'm now 0 for 5 on CPR. I just realized I was 0 for 4 as a cop. So,
I can beat that because I gave CPR to a hamster. So.
Okay. No, I've not done either of those two things.
Yeah. See, we're pretty dedicated. But back to the entrepreneur side. So our brains never stop. We have this new crazy idea now. We really want to get mini Highland cows. Those are like the shaggy cows that if you go in any house that's for sale right now, you'll see a picture of a Highland cow. It's got the shaggy bangs and the horn.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's in 90% of the homes out here in North Idaho. That picture. So we want to get those. And then we had this idea of putting in Airbnb in the pasture that we have, and then the fence close to it, so the cows can come up, and it'll be like a whole experience. You come, you stay, you get a bucket of carrots, you get some fresh eggs,
Come on.
Yeah.
Right.
Sign me up.
I know. So that's coming.
Yeah, we're working on it right now.
So an Airbnb where you get to come stay with Highland Cows. It will be in Coeur d'Alene by next year.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're talking about, these business ideas and all that, I think that is normal for entrepreneurs.
And I feel like entrepreneurs can't turn it off. It's just trying to stay focused.
Yeah. That's the hard
We've had
part.
a clothing store that my wife opened 24 years ago, Beaumont Exchange.
long ago?
I mean, I would say 100 business ideas that she's had over the 24 years. This is, and you know, she's so good at fixing problems. This is a problem that needs to be fixed. And, you know, if there were 25 hours in a day, we'd probably have 6 more businesses.
Right.
There's just, you know, she's just running out of time.
How does she have 6 locations now?
Yes, there's 6 locations
That's
now.
nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. We went the first 15 years with 1 location. And then once the second location opened, it kind of started this whole, so she would drive by, we'd be driving around town and she'd be like, oh, that would be such a good location. Which the first time I thought that was just, rhetorical talk. And then I realized that it wasn't. Basically, anytime we drive by someplace and she says, oh, that would be a great location, I have to start thinking, so we're opening another store.
There we go.
I kind of equate this to owning goats, Dave. I think like your first goat is kind of a big step. And then you get 2 and you're like, well, shit, why don't we get 5?
Yeah.
And then you have 5 and you're like, well, there you go. So it's the same thing.
We did that with kids. We have 5 children.
But see, there you go.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So what if we can go back to the entrepreneur side?
Sure.
What would you say the hardest thing is, in this life? Since you both, the last 4 years now, you've both been entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody writing you a check. There's nobody, saying, hey, here's a pat on the back, here's your check. And, what's been the hardest thing?
I think for me probably is one, like it not feeling like it's building fast enough. And then like waiting for that check. And you're like, oh, well, if I can just get to this level, I'll feel okay, but it takes a lot of time for that to happen.
Yep.
You don't just, obviously some people have these amazing stories, but for the most part, the average person, like it takes time. Like, when you're looking at the outside, you might think someone got from, where they started to where they are and like that. But really, you don't see the years behind all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, look at that person. They're so lucky, right?
Right. But they don't see all the hard work and the time that was behind that and how long it took to get there. You might be looking at somebody, 2, 3, 5 years from when they started.
Right.
Yeah.
And it has to be that, it's got to be that this has to happen. Like this, no one's going to make it happen for you. It's got to happen, and it comes down to you. I remember with the stores, people are like, oh my goodness, you have 6 stores. That's crazy. That's good. But there were a lot of like 18, 19-hour days where I'd get done building some. I'm not a builder. So I'd be like, and YouTube wasn't as big 24 years ago. So I'm trying to find things and build things. And it'd be like, get to like 2 a.m. and I'd be, okay, I got to be back here like at 6. So I might as well just,
just sleep in ball on the floor here. Yeah.
And there were, or the, like the plumbing backs up or the, whatever, just the stuff that happens where you're just I call it grinding. You're just grinding. And then all of a sudden, it seems like, 15 years down the road, 12 years down the road, whatever, it's like something popped and like, oh, this is working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then people think, wow, it must be nice to
own 6 stores. And you're like,
20
something years later.
Right. I talked to an entrepreneur that I'm super excited to have on, but we've got it set up for a couple months from now. And he's very successful. But he said to me, it took 35 years for me to be an overnight success.
Yeah,
that's
And I thought that was a great quote.
Yeah.
And now I've said it, so we can't use it on the podcast. But he said it so much better, and I thought that is so true.
It's so true.
And boy, I'm in this situation, with my personal business where you're thinking the next idea is going to push me over the top.
Right.
Okay, that almost did it, but one more. If I add this, it's going to do. And then finding out like what what you have to say no to. Like, okay, this is a good idea, but learning to sacrifice the good for the great. And that's man,
gold right there.
If you both figure that out, please call me any time of the day and just say, Dave, we figured it out. I'm ready to go. Because that's what I mean. There's a lot of good things that you have to say no to.
Yeah.
You just need me in your life. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
He always comes up with these ideas and he's like, why don't you look excited right now? And I'm like, well, I'm just running the logistics of it. And like, is it worth our time? Is it like, it's hard.
That touches on like my biggest personal challenge is focus. I had ADHD before it was cool. So my brain's all over the place. It's undiagnosed and untreated and it runs rampant. So I have a hard time. I bounce all over the place throughout the day. So she does a really good job of like bringing me back and focusing me on the important things. So that's probably one of my biggest struggles.
Yeah. Well, it's so powerful that you recognize that.
Yeah.
Because I think most people go through, I shouldn't say most, a lot of entrepreneurs go through business and they don't recognize their weakness or they don't recognize their blind spot.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes from the outside, you look in and go, oh my goodness, if they would just, this would work, but you don't have that relationship or, you can't talk to them or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so that community, I think that you guys have surrounded yourself with is great because you guys can probably point each other's stuff out.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You as a team, you probably like, hey, dumbass.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
I remember, because we've looked at possibly, because I might be in a building situation here fairly soon.
Yeah.
And so we've actually looked at, doing a building together. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just like, I try to get around cool, smart people as much as possible. Hopefully that rubs off on me. And I think one of the buildings that we looked at, we were both, because I think we're both, dreamers. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. We're on the phone, this is awesome. So the next day you were like, I talked to Kristen.
She had a point.
She said that, if you're getting a 9,000 square foot building, you probably need more than 2 bathrooms.
Yep.
I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
Do you remember that building?
Oh, yeah.
And we have 9,000 square feet, but there's only like 6 parking places. But the building was so cool.
It was cool.
It was so shiny.
I know.
And so it's definitely so important to have people in your life that aren't afraid to speak the truth.
Yeah. Being able to, be your brother's keeper, I think is extremely, extremely important. And having the relationship with someone, whether it's your wife or your business partners, where you can do that and feelings aren't going to get hurt. That's important, right?
Well, and taking that criticism, even if you don't have a partner, but you're like sharing it with a friend or somebody and being open to like hearing their criticism on your idea, not just like it glazing over and being like, I don't want to hear the negative sides of what I'm thinking because I want to do it. Right.
Oh, I struggle with that.
Yeah. You're like, I don't care what you say. I don't care.
All my ideas are the greatest ideas that ever happened. And someone says, well, that's a really dumb idea. And you're like, you're stupid.
It's hard to hear the criticism. It is.
Until you hear the why, and you're like, I guess it wasn't the best idea. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to create this where entrepreneurs can watch this podcast and get ideas or learn about themselves or learn to ask themselves questions. I'm trying to provide resources. And I think one of the things I want to ask every entrepreneur that we do this with, and since you're the first, you'll be the first person that ever asked us to, if there was one piece of advice that you could give people that are doing whatever business whether they're making widgets or they're cleaning carpets or whatever they're doing, one piece of advice, what would that be?
I have a great answer to this that we can use an example from our life for. Keep going. If you know you're on a good path and other people agree with it, right? Maybe don't do this if you're on a dumb path. But if you're on a good path, keep going. Our YouTube channel, it took us a year posting 2 videos a week and a podcast every week before we got our first call about real estate. A whole year.
Wow.
And I wanted to give up many times. She talked me off the ledge. I'm sure that switched at times. I talked her off the ledge, but we kept going at that same pace. And after a year, we got a call. And I remember that first call. I remember who it was. And I was like, holy crap.
It's working.
It's working.
Only a year later.
And now it's snowballed to where I get multiple calls or emails or texts every single day. It's unbelievable. So it just took getting through that dry period of like, oh man, like this is a grind. And then we got that first glimmer of hope and we kept going and like, holy crap, it's been bananas.
Yeah, mine is kind of similar, but it's like the squirrel brain is great, but like pick one idea and then move forward with that idea. People like, social media or something, maybe they'll post for a couple of weeks and they're like, it's not working, and it's like, you have to stick with an idea, whether it's a business idea or marketing idea or whatever. And you have to stick with it for like, give yourself 6 months or a year with that tactic alone and don't go off the path. Just stick with it.
That requires an accountability partner,
Yeah.
I think, right? Or partners. And that's where we had each other at first. And now we have the rest of the team of people holding you accountable to those goals that you set. And it will produce.
Yeah. You don't know if it's going to work unless you like stick with it for a long period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Both great advice. It's because I'm listening to this and I like to want to take notes for myself, just thinking, because I've definitely done that before where, like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it's like 2 or 3 weeks into it. You're like, oh,
it's not working. Well, it goes back to that idea where it was like, we were talking about earlier. It's like you start something and you're like expecting the results to happen faster. And you're like, this was my one idea. Like, this is going to set me over the edge. And then it kind of like maybe trickles you over the edge, but you just got to stick with it because things don't happen super fast out there. I mean, like I said, you see that on Instagram, you see that out there that happens for people, but whether it's true or not, we don't know because it's social media, right? It's all a lie.
Except our social media is all true.
or it like you're just getting a little peek into their life or in their business. So you just don't know what's really happening.
Yeah. I mean, we're going through that right now. Like our social media, we post a lot. We have a ton of content. And it's like, like on Instagram, Facebook, all that crap. It gets some traction, but we're not there yet.
No, you got to keep tweaking.
But we learned like we're going to keep tweaking, dial it in and keep going. Yep. It will get there.
Yeah. And I didn't do any, I'm not a real big social media fan.
Me neither.
But with the business, it's kind of,
you have to.
You kind of have to learn.
If I didn't have a business, I'd not have any social media.
I spend very little time on there on my personal life. It's like kind of toxic, I think. If I go on X or whatever and I look and I'm like, I'm done. And I'm like, I feel kind of gross and feel crappy. And I noticed that in the morning. I was doing that first thing in the morning. And I was like, I feel like crap. That's when I switched over to now I read in the morning and I don't allow myself to look at any social media in the morning because it's kind of you should look at our social media though.
Yeah.
I mean, you can control to some extent who you follow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what kind of content. You can build your own story.
You do want to tell people, don't do social media.
Yeah.
Except for do our social media.
Except for watch ours because it's really great.
That or Highland cows. If you get on any of those,
those are good.
You'll lose your mind.
Yeah, I've definitely got on. If you get in social media and you get on some rabbit hole about whatever, guys doing belly flops or whatever it is, and then you'll look, like I've been watching belly flops for 20 minutes.
Right.
This is 20 minutes of my life that I'm never going to get back.
Right. Yeah.
So that's definitely good advice. Reading, I do a lot of audiobooks. I think I've done, it's over 400.
Wow.
When do you do it?
But I used to drive a lot for my job, like a lot. And I hate listening to the radio where you can hear one good song and then 9 bad songs and then like 50 commercials over things you never need. And so I started doing audiobooks and I do a lot of, I'm trying to do books that are actually going to, help me get smarter.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of, John Grisham or David Baldacci or, those like legal thrillers or adventure books or whatever, just for entertainment purposes. But I've been trying to expand my horizons.
There's so much knowledge out there. I listen to a lot of podcasts because you get so caught up in the business life, the day to day, you're so busy, but if you don't take that time to expand your own personal knowledge and keep making yourself unique, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. It's hard to have that balance. Like whether you're listening to business podcasts or audiobooks to better yourself in that way, or you're listening to, I don't know, like a Joe Rogan just to get, for fun or whatever. I mean, he has interesting people on there, but you know what I mean? It's hard to balance. Or do you want to listen to just like check out and listen to a novel, right? It's hard to balance and find time for all that because we're so busy. It's like, how do you listen to all of it?
Yeah, it's so for me, it's a lot of times when I'm driving, I'm going to drive from here to there or whatever. That's when I'll try to tune that in. But it's you know, you don't want to be a non-informed person,
Right.
but you don't want to be an over-informed person.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's a lot of stuff that's going on out there that, you know, like, I don't know, I should know about that. But then I find out about it and I'm thinking, well, why? That's not going to affect me
Right,
or
right.
benefit me
Mhm.
or anything,
No.
any way, shape, or form. These people are always going to lie. These people are always going to present something that's not true. Why do I need to know about especially like politics and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Why do I need to know about every lie? You know, like once a person, you know, for me, once a person has broke trust, I use a phrase, I call them arm's length people. I just keep them at arm's length. And it's like, I don't need to know what my arm's length people are doing every second of every day.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a tough one. Because I do want people to pay attention to my social media.
Yeah.
Well, for
Of course.
sure. It's like, you know, now it's like, okay, now you have a great podcast, people, entrepreneurs and people need to listen to, right? We have a great podcast that you got to find time to listen to. You know what I mean? It's like fitting it all in and
Yeah.
it's hard,
Yeah.
but you got to pick.
I think
I
you're
guess,
right.
yeah.
Driving. I don't wear earbuds at the gym. I'm weird like that.
It's weird.
So I don't listen to anything at the gym.
I don't like doing that either.
It's a situational
I
awareness
can't
thing
do it
for me.
without it.
That's for me. That's what it is. So I end up listening now. I walk my dogs at night and I'll listen to podcasts, but I can only do one ear
Good.
That's
because
good,
I
yeah.
want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like in case I need to
Don't be a sheep, man.
Um,
You can't be a sheep out there. Just
break out, you know,
Right.
my whatever. I don't know. I need to learn how to do stuff. I'd just be, you know, like, okay.
Hey,
I'm
at least
gonna-
being aware is the first step. So
Yeah.
at
that's
least
the
you
deal.
got that figured out.
Yeah.
That's important.
But yeah, the gym, I can't, I've never been able to wear earbuds in the gym.
I don't do it.
You know,
Yeah.
I think people, when they talk to you, I always feel like I'll be rude. You know, hey, good to see you or whatever.
Yeah. I just don't. I like to know what's going on around me, and that involves hearing things. So
Yeah.
I'm weird like
Can't
that.
relate.
Well, all my daughters, they have their earbuds in before they go into the gym. Brooke has her earbuds in before, you know, they're listening to music. Or
Oh, it really
podcasts or
cuts off the
whatever.
conversation for sure. Like I never talk to anyone at the gym because I always have my earbuds in. And it does stop people from wanting to conversate with you because they see your earbuds.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's I think that fits in the category of being able to say no.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if somebody wants to talk to me? So I don't know. Well, man, I honestly appreciate so much you allowing me to do this in your studio. I appreciate you coming on for my first episode, and it's crazy, but what 2.5 years ago, I didn't even know who you were,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, I can't imagine
I talk
not
to you-
knowing who you are.
Talk to you like every day. I really hope that we can find that space that our businesses share together. And honestly, it's selfish because I walk down to your place every day and it's going to
Yes.
save me a lot of time if I can just like go downstairs. So yeah, let's make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, that'd be awesome. Well, hey, thanks a lot. Thank you so much for watching this and tuning in. And thank you for joining this journey with me as I am trying to explore the mind of an entrepreneur because it's a crazy mind. So thanks a lot. I will see you next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
See you.